So hi, good afternoon. All good. So before going ahead with the next topic, which is judiciary during the British East India Company's regime, कितने लोगों को नहीं पता है what is imperialism and colonialism? Colonialism, ठीक है, मैंने भी टंग ट्विस्टर हो गया. So those who know imperialism बताओ, किसी क्लास में डिस्कस किया था? I think we discussed imperialism, ठीक है? नहीं तो बताओ. Some of you who know what is imperialism, first tell me imperialism, then we'll go into the colonialism. बताओ बताओ, raise your hand, ठीक है? No one? चलो हाँ. This expansion of territory is what? नहीं, instrument of imperialism is the colonialism, ठीक है? चलो let me explain. You want to say? बताओ. हाँ. Good, ठीक है? See, basically, the extension of a rule of a particular country in some other country is imperialism, ठीक है? And when they started to control the polity, economy, society of that area, so it is the term, it is the process of the colonization, ठीक है? So it is the process of the colonization. So basically, colonialism and imperialism are interrelated. And colonialism is the tool, ठीक है, is the instrument through which imperialism is established. So they will come to a particular country in which they will be establishing their, just like the British, ठीक है? They came to India, they created their warehouses, factories, these all things, and then after slowly their aspirations changed, their ambitions changed, they started fighting war, and with the war they have acquired territories in India. So that territory has become their colony, okay? A small colony, and they are expanding that colony further. But then the colonization does not happen with just annexation of the territory, but also the domination in the economy, society, and polity. So they dominated Indian polity, they became the rulers. They were the one who were taking all the economic decisions then, and they were the one who were deciding the discourse of the Indian society. So that's how they have colonized India then. So dominating all the spheres of a particular country. And what is imperialism? Extension of a rule of a one country to another country. And how this rule happens? This rule happens with the process of the colonization, okay? So this is what is the meaning. See, last day class खत्म होने के बाद तो मैंने सोचा कि चलो सबसे पूछते हैं, ठीक है? So now let's move to the next topic, that is the judiciary. Police, army, and the civil services, I think we have completed. So write a title, judicial organization under British. So judicial organization under British. Now listen first. First, Governor General Warren Hastings, okay? And then when he came to power, so he decided to just give me 1 minute. Create the judiciary of the British East India Company on the lines of the Mughal model. So he is inspired from the Mughal model. So in line with the Mughal model, he created Diwani Adalat. ध्यान से समझना, Diwani Adalat for civil cases and Faujadari Adalat for criminal cases. Then if a appeal has to be made, so for the appeals from these two type of court, Diwani and Faujadari, higher court was created, and higher court was known as Sadar Diwani Adalat for civil cases, appeal of the civil cases, and appeal of the criminal cases, Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So this was the beginning. Moreover, in the beginning, he also enlisted the help of the law experts of that time. And who were the law experts? These law experts were called as Qazis and Muftis. Done. So their help was taken at that point of time, and even there were people of the Hindu law interpretation and Muslim law interpretation, so they were enlisted. That is the model till that time. Now, the major change in the judicial system of the British was brought about by Cornwallis. Okay? So, in fact, this entire part is all about the Cornwallis, Cornwallis, Cornwallis. So, Cornwallis, what changes he has made? So, understand, इसमें दो चीजें हैं, ठीक है? First, I will tell you the development, and second, I'll create a flow chart. So, development में क्या होता है? That when I'm telling you the development, so mind goes here and there, but once it is there in the chart, you will be able to remember. Then, so पहले सुन लो. So what he did, that the Diwani Adalat which was there at the initial level, now he designated Diwani Adalat as a Zila Adalat. Then, so Zila Adalat or district court, and Faujdari Adalat was abolished. Okay? So it was abolished. Then moreover, in between district court and the Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat, he added 4 more courts, and these courts were known as 4 provincial courts of circuit and appeal. These provincial courts were created at Calcutta, okay, Dhaka, Patna, and Murshidabad. So these 4 places, these 4 provincial courts were created. Apart from it, Cornwallis, he also created the gradation of the courts in India. What is gradation of court? Basically the hierarchy of the courts. So what will be the lowest level court and what will be the highest level court? So in this part, I need to create a chart. So पहले थोड़ा सा लिखो, mention, you write. Start with that Warren Hastings in line, Warren Hastings created British judiciary in line with Mughal model. In line with Mughal model. Sorry. Then you write, he created Diwani Adalat for civil cases. He created Diwani Adalat for civil cases and Faujdari Adalat for criminal cases. Then mention after it Diwani Adalat and Faujdari Adalat. उसके बाद लिखो. He also enlisted the help of Hindu and Muslim law experts like Qazis and Muftis. Then for appeals of civil cases, Sadar Diwani Adalat was created. And for criminal cases, Sadar Nizamat Adalat was created. Done. Then mention further. आगे लिखो. Change paragraph and then you mention. Later, Cornwallis brought many changes. in the existing judicial system. Many changes in the existing judicial system. Done? Then आगे लिखो. Now Diwani Adalat was designated as Now Diwani Adalat was designated as District Adalat. Diwani Adalat was designated as District Adalat and Faujdari Adalat was abolished. Faujdari Adalat was abolished. Faujdari Adalat was abolished. Done? Then mention. At the next level, he created four provincial courts. At the next level, he created four provincial courts of circuit and appeal. Four provincial courts of circuit and appeal. So write the places at Patna, Dhaka, Calcutta, and Murshidabad. Murshidabad. Then mention. Cornwallis also created gradation of courts in India. Cornwallis also created gradation of courts in India, which is as follows. Gradation of courts. So which is as follows. So I am going to create starting from the lowest level court and धीरे धीरे नीचे highest level court, going to create in a flow chart. So you also create at the same time. So the lowest level court was known as Munsif Court. So Munsif Court वैसे ही बनाना जैसे मैं बना रहा हूँ. Then the next court was basically Registrar's Court. Registrar's Court. Then after the Registrar's Court was the District Court. Then from the District Court, what is there? Tell me what we created. Four provincial courts of circuit and appeal. Four provincial courts. Then and from four provincial courts, अब इसके बाद the next one would be Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat. But then you will have to write it separately. Sadar Diwani Adalat. Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So Sadar Diwani Adalat and Sadar Nizamat Adalat. Then tell me, अब यहाँ से case, if there is any appeal to be made from Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat, so where it will go? बताओ. It will go to Supreme Court. it will go to Supreme Court. And so what is highest court in India? It is not. So understand. We'll tell you why. पहले पूरा कंप्लीट कर लो, ठीक है? गवर्नर जनरल इज नॉट अ कोर्ट, ही इज अ पर्सन. कभी गलती नहीं करना, ठीक है? गवर्नर जनरल हैज मोर पावर्स देन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जज, बट ही इज अ पर्सन, ही इज नॉट अ कोर्ट. एंड क्वेश्चन में हमेशा पूछेगा कोर्ट, ठीक है? सो लेट्स कम टू द नेक्स्ट वन इज king in council. King in council. It is also called as privy council. Then, so this will be the highest court. It is not in India. It is in Britain, in which the part would be king would be the part of it, and then his council would be there. So they'll be taking the decision. So that is the highest court. As far as the Supreme Court is concerned, अब ध्यान से समझना, ठीक है? You create it and then I'll let you know. पहले लिख तो लो, मैं खुद ही समझाने वाला हूँ, पता चलिए तुम्हारे क्वेश्चन का एड्रेस उसी में हो जाए. लिख लिया? Now, just give me 1 minute. So understand. See this Supreme Court which is there, okay? It is not the highest court. When was Supreme Court created? 1774. So by that time, Bengal was under the occupation of the British. So Bengal was under the occupation of the British, but then not the Maratha area, not the Mysore area, then not the Punjab. So Supreme Court was the highest court for the people of the Bengal, for the natives of the Bengal. But later on, when the other areas are annexed, 1792. So by that time, Cornwallis has further extended. Then, so Cornwallis has further extended, and by that time, so more areas are included. But then for them, Supreme Court is not the highest court. So for them, from Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat itself, it will go into this particular council. Okay? And moreover, from the Supreme Court also, if any appeal is to be made, so that will go into the King in Council. Okay? So highest court was a Privy Council or a King in Council. And moreover, see, it is also about कि मान लो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में या सदर दीवानी या सदर निजामत में कोई केस है, and then appeal has to be made. But then appeal करने के बाद it must be accepted by the council. Then only it will be entertained. If it rejects, so the decision of the previous adalat would be final. Getting it? Just like in the today's system. Then so appeal अगर जो accept कर लेते हैं तो that is fine. Then moreover, understand, I just want to ask one question to you. Tell me that what is the difference between that civil and criminal cases? Which cases would be civil and which will be criminal? एक एक करके हाथ उठा के बताओ. So हाँ, tell me. हाँ, ठीक है. That is civil cases. ठीक है. कुछ अलग किसी को बताना है कुछ इससे? Anything? अच्छा, then can a civil case turn to be a criminal case? हो सकता है. कैसे? ओके, तुम लॉ वाले स्टूडेंट हो ना? यू आर, बट देन गुड. सो इधर कुछ बोल रहे थे तुम लोग. व्हाट यू आर सेइंग? बताओ बताओ. इट्स ऑल फाइन. बाय एनी perjury. Okay. So, civil case can turn into a criminal case. I'll tell you one very classic example of this one: land dispute. Itself, land dispute, and it's very common in each and every household of India. Okay, majority of the time there would be a land dispute. इस generation में नहीं हुआ तो अगले generation में पक्का होगा. ठीक है? So land dispute is common, and it is often said, if you have seen the process in the villages, so people say that कि आपस में ही मामला सलटा लो. ठीक है? This is what is the word, that आपस में ही मामला सुलझा लो, otherwise ये फौजदारी का मुकदमा हो जाएगा. Then, so why they say, see that when there is a land dispute, so generally it must be settled between the families itself. But if it is not settled between the families, and if they start fighting over it, so then it becomes फौजदारी का मुकदमा, and फौजदारी meaning the criminal case. So in this what happens, that civil, जब तक ये civil case है, till the time it is civil case. So suppose I and you are fighting for the land, we are allowed to do the cultivation on the land. But when it goes into the criminal code, ठीक है, so then you can't do. The property is disputed. ठीक है, वो लिख के आ जाएगा. ओल्ड राजेंद्र नगर में भी कुछ घर होंगे जहां लिखा होगा बाहर property is disputed because it has gone into the criminal case. Then so property is disputed. आप वहां पे न रह सकते हो, ना you can do the cultivation, you can't do anything. Then till the time the resolution has happened. So this is what is how the things turn from the civil to the criminal. I hope you got it then. So this is what is the structure which was created by Cornwallis. And you remember that we mentioned that he relieved the district collectors from the duty of the judicial things, and he was only interested with the revenue administration. The next change in the judiciary was brought by William Bentinck. So in 1833, William Bentinck, when he has come to power, so what he has done, he just abolished this 4 provincial court. These 4 provincial courts were abolished, and at their place, what he created judicial commissionaries. He created judicial commissionaries. And what is commissionary? Any idea? कुछ पता? जैसे district. So generally, that big cities, ठीक है, or big city areas will come under the commissionary. It is the modern classification, but here in normal way how you can understand, 3-4 district मिला के एक commissionary बन गई, ठीक है. So judicial commissionaries he created, and once again the charges of the judicial commissionary was given to the civil servant. So now you're understanding that how the district collector or civil servants were becoming more powerful. Pehle they were only having the revenue administration, now they got the charges of the SP also, and they got the charges of the judicial functions also. So that's how the civil servant organization became the most powerful organization at this time, and that's what is the centralization of the Indian administration. So mention karo, likho, change paragraph, and then you write. When William Bentinck came to power, he abolished 4 provincial courts. And at its place he created judicial commissionaries. Full stop. Then mention. Once again, the charges of judicial commissionery was given to civil servants and district collectors. District collector. Done. So this is what is before 1857. What was the scenario of the judiciary in India? Changes will be happening after 1857, and those changes you will get to know through the acts, that what are those. But for the time being, I just want to add one part. Likhna nahi, will be writing in the other part. That is, finally, the 3 high courts were created in the 1865, which is basically Calcutta High Court, Bombay and Madras High Court. And the Supreme Court, which was there at the Calcutta, now it merged with the High Court at Calcutta. And at that point of time, they also introduced, British authority introduced 2 important principles in the Indian judiciary, that is rule of law and equality before law. ठीक है? Polity हो रहा है ना साथ में? नहीं, मैं रोज पूछता हूँ यही. So anyways, so in polity itself, that when you start your polity course, so actually the discussion will all start with the rule of law and the equality before law. ठीक है? So ये अभी नहीं लिखवा रहा हूँ because that's a part of the 1861 Councils Act. ठीक है? So now we are done with this part. Let's see other things which are causing a kind of that high fervor in the society, resentment in the society, and finally leading to the 1857 revolt. So, next important part of the British administration is the land revenue administration of the British, and it is through the land revenue administration they are earning the huge amount of money. Okay, so mention major title land revenue settlements. लैंड और पहले लिखो लैंड रेवेन्यू पॉलिसी ऑफ ब्रिटिश लैंड रेवेन्यू पॉलिसी and in this land revenue policy there were three settlements uh, which were applied all over India, and these in different areas. So first one that we are going to start is the permanent settlement. So number one, permanent settlement. It is also called as zamindari bandobast. So permanent settlement or zamindari bandobast. So now understand. अब ये बड़ा टॉपिक है एंड इस क्वेश्चन आया था. आई ऑलरेडी टोल्ड यू दैट दिस ईयर पेपर. सो लैंड रेवेन्यू सेटलमेंट में द वेरी फर्स्ट वाज द दिस वन, second was the Rayatwadi, and third was the Mehelwari. This started from the Bengal side, eastern side. Rayatwadi was there in the Madras and the Bombay, and we'll tell you what exactly Madras and Bombay means. Then the rest of the area of India, that is northwest India, where Mehelwari system was applied. So Zamindari system or the Zamindari Bandobast or permanent settlement, it was initiated by Cornwallis. Once again, Cornwallis. But then understand in this topic how we are going to proceed. So first we'll talk about the introduction, in all of them. Introduction may will be mentioning about that key, where it was implemented, who implemented it, how much area it covered, and moreover naming also. Then we go into the provisions of the settlement, then the reasons for its implementation, and then after the impact of settlement. So we are going to cover it in a holistic way. No other source will be required to study this particular topic. So let's start with the very first thing. First of all, that why it is called as permanent and bandobast will tell you later, but who implemented it? 1793, it is Cornwallis who started it in Bihar, Bengal and Bihar. Then, so Bengal, Bihar he started. Later on, it was further extended to Odisha and northern districts of Madras, and also the area of Varanasi. So these places it was implemented, and overall it covered 19% area of British India. Okay, so this much area it covered. Then लिखो इसको. It was initiated by Cornwallis. It was initiated by Cornwallis in 1793. It was initiated by Cornwallis in 1793. Then mention in the area of 1793, in the area of Bengal, Bihar, in the area of Bengal, Bihar, in the beginning, but later it was further extended to, Odisha, northern districts of Madras, and Varanasi. Done. It covered near about 19% area it covered near about 19% area of 19% area of British India. Then, so let's look at the provisions. What is the provision? And exactly same thing was asked in this year's paper. So very first thing, that why it is called as permanent settlement, and so as the zamindari bandobast. So zamindari, it is called as zamindari because the settlement was between British authority and the zamindar. Okay? So it was between the British authority and zamindar. That's why it is called as zamindari bandobast. And why it is called as permanent? Because the amount which was to be collected by zamindar and zamindar would be submitting it to the British authority was permanently fixed, meaning that what they will be giving in 1793, it is permanently fixed, and the same amount they will have to give each and every year, 94, 95, 96, so on so forth. Then so permanent fixed amount and then negotiation with the zamindar. So that's why this naming. Now we further need to understand that what is this permanent amount. So basically what Cornwallis did, बहुत ध्यान से समझना, ठीक है, सुनना इसको ध्यान से. Cornwallis, what he did, that he calculated the income from Bengal from the year 1782 to 92. So 10 साल का जो भी income था, whatever revenue they have got from the Bengal, he calculated it all. And suppose that amount came to be X. Then 10 साल का income X. He divided it by 10. The average came, ठीक है, so average समझ लो Y, ठीक है. So this is 1 year average. So now this amount is taken. In this amount they added something extra, ठीक है, and then this extra amount they made it a permanently fixed amount. So this is what is the amount which is fixed amount which is to be given to the British, and that was somewhere around 36 million के आसपास था, ठीक है. So 36 million rupees के आसपास था. And what they did, so they have done a upward revision, का मतलब थोड़ा इसमें ऐड कर दिया, ठीक है, तो इसको 36 की बजाय 40 कर दिया. And now this is what is to be collected by zamindars in the Bengal. So when they are collecting it, so out of this amount, ठीक है, जितना collected है, whatever amount they have collected in this from this permanently fixed amount, 10/11 was kept by British. zamindar इतना नहीं रखेगा, was kept by British, and 1/11 for zamindar. So this is what was the sharing mechanism. Amount उतना है और उसी amount में this is the sharing mechanism. So that's what was there. We'll talk about the peasants बाद में, पहले लिखो इतना mention. Very first thing, the settlement was between British authority and zamindar. The settlement was between British authority and zamindar. That's why it was named permanent settlement. That's why it was named permanent settlement. Then mention. नहीं, that's why it was named zamindari bandobast. Change करो. That's why it was named zamindari bandobast. Change करो, cut करो. zamindari bandobast. Then second you write. I'll look at your copy. Second नहीं, उसी में. After full stop you mention. Since the revenue was permanently fixed, that's why it was also called, since the revenue was permanently fixed, that's why it was also called permanent settlement. Now it's fine. It was also called permanent settlement. Then mention next point. From the permanently fixed collected amount, permanently fixed collected amount, 10 by 11, from the permanently fixed collected amount, 10 by 11 was the share of British Authority, and 1 by 11 for zamindar. 1 by 11 for zamindar. Then what about the peasant? So there was no such fixation on the peasant. Basically, if zamindar is paying the revenue and he's collecting, so he's collecting from whom? Peasants. So peasants say he can collect any amount. Then he can collect any amount. So suppose that if zamindars have to collect 40, then suppose if they are collecting 60, तो सबमिट कितना करना है? सिर्फ 40. ठीक है? 20 is his additional benefit. Then so there was no such fixation of the amount for the peasants. Zamindars can collect anything. ठीक है? And this is how zamindars have become more exploitative, that they wanted to collect more than what is the fixed amount. ठीक है? So what is the fixed amount? That is one part. Then another very important aspect of any settlement is the land ownership right. Who was given the land ownership right? So in this settlement, since the settlement is with the zamindar, so land ownership is given to the zamindar, and this land is hereditary and transferable. So hereditary, you understand what is transferable? Meaning बेच सकते हैं. ठीक है? बेच सकते हैं. So it is hereditary and transferable. But then understand, the ultimate ownership of land lay in the hands of the British authority. So the ultimate ownership of the land lay in the hands of the British authority. This is what was there. Then another very important provision of this act, which has been asked this year, that is sunset clause. Sunset clause. So what is sunset clause? If zamindar, okay, is not able to make the payment on the fixed date, there was a fixed date of making the payment. If he is not able to make the payment on the fixed date, so his zamindari estate was confiscated. Okay? So his zamindari estate was confiscated, and then it was sold to somebody else. Then so it was sold to somebody else, and that's how British were able to remove some old zamindars, and they were creating the new zamindaris at this point of time. So this is exactly the part which has been asked this year paper. So ये will have to make the payment on time, and sunset clause इसलिए बोलते हैं कि एक fixed date है. मान लो 22nd of June is the fixed date. Then they will have to submit the revenue, and before the sunset of today's, ठीक है, if the zamindar is not able to make the payment, so his land would be confiscated. His land ownership right would be snatched. So लिखो इसको, mention करो. Next point you write that there was no fixation of rates. There was no fixation of rates which peasants would be paying to zamindar. No fixation of the rate which peasants will be paying to zamindar. Peasants would be paying to zamindar. Then mention next part. Land ownership right. Next provision. Land ownership right was given. Land ownership right was given to zamindar. Was given to zamindar, and it was hereditary. And it was hereditary and transferable. It was hereditary and transferable. Transferable. Then mention आफ्टर इट उसमें नहीं, नेक्स्ट नहीं करना, उसी में ऐड करो. बट द अल्टीमेट ओनरशिप ऑफ द लैंड, but the ultimate ownership of the land lay in the hands of, but the ultimate ownership of land lay in the hands of British authority. British authority. Then next point. One very important part, one very important part of this settlement, one very important part of the settlement was sunset clause. Sunset clause. Full stop. If zamindar is not able, if zamindar is not able to make the payment on time, payment on time, it will lead to confiscation of, it will lead to confiscation of his landed estate, confiscation of his landed estate. And his zamindari can also be snatched. His zamindari can also be snatched. Done. So his zamindari can also be snatched. So this is what is about the this part. Then another thing, there are one more provision. Understand? See, one of the issue is that whenever suppose that there is any natural calamity like drought, flood, anything, okay? So उस situation में peasants must be given relief, but then there was no mention of any relief to the peasants during the natural calamity or crop failure. Then crop failure. So this is one thing which will not be there in the Rayatwadi, but it was there in the permanent. So एक बार लिखो, mention करो. Next point, that in case of crop failure, due to any natural calamity, in case of crop failure due to natural calamity, no relief was provided. No relief was provided. Done. So this is what is about the important provisions of this particular settlement. Then now let's look at the reasons for its implementation. एक title लिखो, reasons for its implementation. So now understand, when it comes to reasons for its implementation, one by one, understand. See, what is from the Cornwallis point of view, that what he wanted. So Cornwallis wanted at this point of time a permanently fixed sustainable income. Okay? So sustainable income, at least the British must have the guarantee of getting this much income. So with that, they can planning their further consolidation, their operations in India. Moreover, collecting the revenue is a mind-boggling work. Okay? So it's a mind-boggling work, and then it takes hell lot of efforts from the side of the collector. So they did not wanted themselves to be indulging in the revenue collection work, and they have handed this revenue collection work to the zamindar. Then why they don't want to collect the revenue if they have the right? So they wanted to focus on the expansion of the British East India Company's regime, fighting the war further expanding the company's regime rather than collecting the revenue. So they were saving their energies for the expansion. Then moreover, Cornwallis was of the view that when the amount is permanently fixed, so जो amount 1793 में collect करना है, the same amount has to be collected in 1813 also. So this way he was of the view that initially it might be little pressurable to the peasants, but later on when their production is higher, ठीक है, and moreover they will get good prices, so it will be easier for them. Then so अगर जो टैक्स का अमाउंट चेंज नहीं हो रहा है तो इन द लेटर रन इट विल बी कंफर्टेबल फॉर देम टू पे द टैक्सेस एंड दे कैन फर्दर इन्वेस्ट ऑन द फर्टिलिटी ऑफ द लैंड. सो फॉर एग्जांपल बहुत सिंपल सा केस है, अगर ये नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, दैट व्हाट वाज द tax amount that people used to pay in 2002, if one has to pay the same tax amount in 2024, so is it good for the customers? Obviously it is good. ठीक है, कस्टमर्स हमारे जैसे लोगों के लिए. ठीक है, तो 2002 में अगर हम 2000 रुपए टैक्स भरते थे तो आज भी 2000 रुपए ही टैक्स भरने पड़े तो अच्छा है ना. बट देन टैक्स हैज इंक्रीज्ड. So this is what was the Cornwallis thought, that if the taxes would be kind of this comfortable, so in the later run it will be benefiting the peasants. Okay. Then another thing, with this settlement, British wanted to get one more power. They actually wanted to bring a paradigm shift in the Indian society by creating a new class of zamindar. Then new class of zamindar who would not only be friendly to the British but also loyal to the British Raj. And how they were creating this new class of zamindar, dhyan se samajhna. This new class of zamindar was created by replacing the old zamindar. So it is said that within a period of the 40 years itself, 31% of the old zamindars of the Bengal were replaced by new zamindars. And how old zamindars are replaced? Sunset clause. If they are not able to make the payment, they are defaulting on the payment, their land ownership is snatched, their zamindari is snatched, और ये zamindari किसी और को दे दी. ठीक है? So the new person who has become the zamindar, he will be friendly and he will be loyal to the British Raj. But then understand, as far as the zamindari as an institution is concerned, कहाँ से start होता है? It's a very old institution in India, zamindari institution. The original beginnings can be seen during the Satvahan rule in the 3rd century AD. ठीक है? So 2nd and 3rd century AD. But then that was for the religious purpose. When the Guptas have come to power, so by the middle of the 5th century, they started to grant land to their officers also. And that is the true beginning of the feudalism in India. By the end of the ancient rule, 12th century, feudalism or zamindari is a very well established organization, institution in India. अभी ये कितना पुराना हो गया है? Near about by 1200 it is already 700 year old, more than 700 year old. And then when the British have arrived, so it is more than 1500 year old. Then so it is a 1500 year old institution and it is not easy to remove the old zamindar, but then British were able to do that. Then so old zamindar is removed and new zamindar is created. So with that they are creating the friendly people for themselves. And in fact, till the last leg of the Indian freedom struggle, you will see that majority of this new class of zamindar, they remained loyal to the British authority. And they were the one who were always called as the collaborator class with the British authority. So mention karo, you write number 1. एक एक करके. Cornwallis wanted a permanently fixed sustainable amount for longer period of time. Then number 2, he anticipated that in the longer run, when the tax rates are not increasing, the settlement would be beneficial the settlement would be beneficial. The settlement would be beneficial to the peasants. Beneficial to the peasants, and they will have more saving to invest on land. They will have more saving to invest on land fertility likhna, to invest on land fertility. Land fertility. Done. Then third, you write. Third, Cornwallis did not wanted. Cornwallis did not wanted to invest the British energy in the hard task of revenue collection. In the hard task of revenue collection, but he wanted to focus on expansion of British regime. Expansion of British regime. Then mention. Next point. They wanted to create a paradigm shift in Indian society. They wanted to create a paradigm shift in Indian society whereby British will be creating a new class of zamindar. British will be creating a new class of zamindar who is not only friendly, but also loyal to British Raj. But also loyal to British Raj. Then, so now this is what is about the intentions of the Cornwallis and then the purpose of this particular settlement. Let's come to the impact of the settlement. And impact में we will go one by one. एक बार देखेंगे what is the impact on the British, then zamindar, then the peasant. ठीक है? So one by one. So write a title: Impact of Settlement. Impact of settlement. There are interesting takeaways from this. So first of all, let's look at what is the impact on British. So now, when it comes to British, it fulfilled the targeted objectives of the British. What amount they wanted, they were getting that amount, and without investing their energies in the revenue collection. Okay? So they were getting that amount. But then, on one hand, this is fulfilled, but on the other hand, they became repentant. Okay? Paschatap hone laga. For what? So what is it? That in the later years, when they have observed the production has increased because of the intervention, then or whenever there would be a good monsoon, so there would be good productivity. So in that case, they can increase the rates, but then they cannot increase. Why so? Because ye permanently fixed tha. So even if they wish to, they cannot increase the rates then even by a single pi. So they felt that they must have kept a provision of revision in the revenue rates. तो वो रखा नहीं था. This is what is there. penance, not penance, I would say. This is what is their repentance. So that is one thing for them. Then what about the zamindars? There are arrays of the effects on the zamindar. On one hand, understand, some of the zamindar, as we mentioned, 31% of the zamindars of the Bengal in 40 years duration, they were replaced by the new zamindars. So meaning that sunset clause was very effective, and moreover, good number of the zamindars, they have lost their zamindari rights. Then so they have lost their zamindari rights. But then the reality is, the rest of the zamindars who became loyal, some of the new are already loyal, and from the old one who became loyal to the British, so they reaped huge benefits then from this zamindari. And in fact, rather than giving more benefit to British, this settlement has given more benefit to the loyal zamindars. So there are other phenomena which have also risen because of it. We'll discuss later. So mention pehle British wala likho. So it fulfilled the targeted objectives. It fulfilled the targeted objectives of British to get a permanent amount to get permanent amount for a longer period of time. For longer period of time. Full stop. But later, full stop के बाद लिखना. But later, British were repentant. But later, British were repentant that they must have kept. But later, British were repentant that they must have kept the provision of revision. They must have kept the provision of revision of the land revenue rates in future. Full stop. Brackets में लिखो. It was inherent in the law. It was inherent in the law that British cannot increase revenue rates even if they wish to. ठीक है, हिंदी वाला विश नहीं है, अंग्रेजी वाला है. So wish to. Brackets closed. Now let's talk about the zamindar. वो जो पहला discussion था, that is one thing, but then let's come to the interesting takeaways from the effects on the zamindar. So what we said, that some of them lost their land ownership as per the sunset clause, but then majority of them reaped huge benefits. But then a important development related to the zamindar is this led to sub-feudalization. I'll explain, but let me write first. Sub-feudalization in Indian society, emergence of large number of absentee landlords, and in one way we can call this as a rise of large number of intermediaries. So how it is happening and what are these words which I have written? So understand, sub-feudalization and then absentee landlord needs to be understood. So tell me that if we talk about the zamindar, so what is his operational area? Rural area or urban area? Rural area, as simple as that. So a zamindar operates from a rural area, ठीक है? And what kind of revenue he collects? Land revenue, okay? And what is land revenue? Agricultural land. Then obviously he is based in the rural areas, and then initially he is a powerful man of some villages, okay, or the rural areas. So powerful person from the rural areas who has been historically traditionally given this right. So what happens that with this particular permanent settlement, those who were loyal, okay, they were going with the British thing, so they reaped a huge benefit. Suppose they are supposed to collect 40, so how much they are collecting? 60. 20 additional benefit यहाँ से हो रहा है, and that 40 में जो share है, that is already there. Then, so they are reaping huge benefits. Now what happens? It is said, it's very, very obvious then that as the income of the people changes, so as their lifestyle. ठीक है? So जैसे जैसे income change होती है, वैसे वैसे lifestyle change हो जाती है. Here also, they are becoming ultra rich, their lifestyle is changing. So how it happens? ठीक है? Earlier the same village is all fine, ठीक है? When the income was normal, but when the income is rising, so village is like it's very dirty. And बारिश में कहाँ से कीचड़ आ जाता है, ठीक है? So the family members will be like that कि we don't want to live in the village. Then we have the enough income. Why not we are shifting to the metropolitan city like Calcutta? So then Mem Saab would be saying that ki, my children will not be studying the village school. They must be studying in some British school, ठीक है? And there is no mahol of UPSC ki tayari in the village. So then they will be saying these all, and then at the end of the day, घर में तो सारा decision उधर से ही चलता है. So then he will have to take a bungalow. So they have the income, they'll be taking a bungalow in the Calcutta, ठीक है? Big bungalow, big mansion, and then the family, half the family shifts to that place. Because zamindar, he can go Saturday, Sunday, but बाकी दिन तो रहना पड़ेगा क्योंकि यहाँ पे collection करना है, कमाई तो यहीं से आ रही है. So then he is living in he is living in the rural area and they are living in the urban areas. But then security concerns of the family, and then after in family also they are saying that ki come to Calcutta, why you are living in the village, ठीक है? So एक दिन रहो, बाकी दिन ये कर लो. But then he is saying that how the revenue would be collected. So then the Mem Saab would be saying that we have enough income, ठीक है? You come to Calcutta and give this work to somebody else. So then he will say that ki how come I can give it to somebody else? He will not be effective. So then she will be saying, why to give it to somebody else? आपका साला किस काम का? So घर की बात घर में रह गई. So now, so zamindar sahab has become an absentee landlord and his sala has become a sub zamindar. Then, so friends and family will become sub zamindar. See, if outside family he gives the collection right, people will not follow. Okay? But if inside family the collection right is given, so then people will submit the revenue. So that's how either it is given to the brothers or in reality son in that this brother-in-laws. Okay? So brother-in-laws were given and they are collecting the revenue. But then understand, earlier zamindar sahab was collecting 60, inko chahiye ki 60, but then that the brother-in-law, he has his own friend circle, ठीक है? वो शाम की पार्टी होनी चाहिए. So then he will be trying to collect 70. 10 report नहीं करना है, 60 I will be reporting, and out of that 60 he will be giving 40 to him. So you see that intermediaries are increasing, and so as who is getting exploited? Peasant. ठीक है? So that's how this settlement became highly exploitative because of the rise of the intermediaries. And then the original landlord has become absentee landlord. ठीक है? Calcutta में रह रहे हैं and then they are मौज से रह रहे हैं and then the income is coming. Moreover, one more thing I'll tell you. Many of these traditional landlords of the Calcutta I would say, ठीक है, rural areas of Bengal, they went to Calcutta, they created their bungalows and mansions, but then apart from it, they created industries in the Calcutta also. Okay? They were related to the textile industry, they were related to many other industries they have created in the Calcutta. So the actually majority of the industrial houses of Bengal were actually related to the zamindari houses. Okay? So this is how the things are unfolding in the Indian scenario. And this was a new phenomenon in the Indian society. So mention karo, you right? So zamindar, so you right? A good number of zamindars lost their land ownership right lost their land ownership right due to sunset clause. A good number of zamindars lost their land ownership right due to sunset clause. But majority of the zamindars but majority of the zamindars reaped huge benefits. Majority of the zamindars reaped, reaped, reaped huge benefits. Then mention. Next point in the same zamindar part. It also led to the beginning of it also led to the beginning of sub feudalization. It also led to the beginning of sub feudalization in Indian society and rise of large number of rise of large number of intermediaries large number of intermediaries and absentee landlords large number of intermediaries and absentee landlords. Then, so this is the effect on the zamindar. Let's talk about the peasants. So what was the impact on the peasants at that time? So the worst condition was with the peasant. Obviously, we are seeing it from this process itself. So one of the problem with the peasant, that peasant is not the owner of the land. Then, so he's not the owner of the land, but he's tiller of the land. Tiller, you understand? जो खेत को जोतता है, ठीक है? So he's the tiller of the land, not owner of the land. And moreover, his existence has become worse than hand to mouth situation. Not only it is leading to the economic decline of the peasantry of the Bengal, but also hand to mouth situation. What is hand to mouth? Meaning, हाँ, खाने को हो पाना, ठीक है? That is what meaning, that you are earning in a day that is only enough to feed your stomach, nothing else. Then you can't buy clothes, you can't buy house, you can't buy anything. So their situation is becoming worse than hand to mouth, meaning खाने को भी नहीं हो पा रहा है. Even they are not able to have the 3-time food. So that was the situation. Then moreover, there is a pressure of submitting the revenue on time. So now in this pressure, what they will be doing? They will be taking the loans. Okay. Once they are taking the loans, so these loans they are taking on a high, very exorbitant interest rate. And when they are not able to make the payment of the interest rate, so then they are caught in the vicious cycle of debt. Vicious cycle of debt. हिंदी में क्या बोलते हो? कर्ज का दुष्चक्र. ठीक है? Meaning you're caught in the cycle of the loan and the interest payment, and you are not able to move out of it. So in this situation, what is the escape out, or what is the way out for him? For some of them, the way out is suicide. Okay? So they will be committing suicide. But then not everyone will commit suicide. And there would be people who know that why it is happening. And why it is happening? Because of the Zamindar and the British. So what they will do? They will revolt. So on one hand, some of them will be committing suicide, and on the other hand, some of them will be organizing the revolt. Then, so this is what started to happen in Bengal, that large number of the civil and tribal uprising have started to happen against the British authority and zamindars. So mention karo, you write peasants. Peasants, and isme, first thing you write, it led to economic decline of peasantry of Bengal. economic decline of peasantry of Bengal. Then mention economic decline of peasantry of Bengal. Their situation became their situation became worse than their situation became worse than hand to mouth existence. Hand to mouth existence. Full stop. Mention. There was pressure on them. There was pressure on them to pay the revenue on time. There was pressure on them to pay the revenue on time. For which, for which they started to take, for which they started to take loans from moneylenders, loans from moneylenders on loans from moneylenders on exorbitant exorbitant interest rate. Loans from moneylenders on exorbitant interest rates. Full stop. As a result, as a result, many of them, as a result, many of them were caught in, many of them were caught in vicious cycle of debt. Many of them were caught in vicious cycle of debt. It further led to it further led to increase it further led to increase in peasant suicide. It further led to increase in peasant suicide. But also, but also the increased instances of but also the increased instances of revolt against revolt against British authority and zamindars. Revolt against British authority and zamindar. British authority and zamindar. Done. One last point is there. So these were the three stakeholders, but then there is one more stakeholder for which these all is happening, and that is what? The land itself. Okay? So the land of Bengal. So understand that the land of Bengal was also one of the biggest casualty. And how come? So understand that the land ownership right was given to the zamindar, and he was supposed to invest on the fertility of the land. So British were concerned about their permanent amount and all the land fertility aspect they have left to zamindar. But then zamindars are reckless. They are trying to maximize and extort the peasants. Then so they are not investing a single penny on the increasing fertility of the land. On the other hand, zamindars have left it to the peasant, but peasant, their own survival is worse than hand to mouth. So how come they will invest on the fertility of land? And moreover, land does not belong to them. Then so they don't have any emotional attachment. So then it proved to be the biggest casualty of this particular settlement, that fertility of the Bengal land was going worse than worse every year. So mention karo, you write. One of the biggest casualty one of the biggest casualty of this settlement was the land fertility of Bengal. Was the land fertility of Bengal. Mention land fertility of Bengal. British were not at all concerned. British were not at all about concerned about investment in land, investment in land, and they left it to zamindars. They left it to zamindars. But zamindars, zamindars, but zamindars were more concerned about increasing their profit, more concerned about increasing their profit. Full stop. Peasants were not the owners of land. Peasants were not the owners of land. Owners of land, and they were not in a situation. They were not in a situation, in a good economic situation, and they were not in a good economic situation. They were not in a good economic situation to support the fertility of land. They were not in a good economic situation to support the fertility of land. Full stop. As such, the agricultural land of Bengal, agricultural land of Bengal started to lose its fertility. Started to lose its fertility. Done. So this is what is all about and this particular part of the settlement. Okay. So how we started? We started with the initial part. Basically, who introduced it? 1793 Cornwallis, area of Bengal, Bihar, later extended to Odisha, northern district of Madras, and so as the Varanasi. Okay. Then what is this northern district of Madras? Basically Madras and Bombay province. Okay. They were not just city, they were province, presidency. So it started from Tamil Nadu, Madras, and going till the parts of Odisha. So the Odisha, where the Odisha touches Andhra Pradesh, that is the northern district of Madras. So that has come under the permanent settlement. It covered 19% of area. Then in the provisions what we mentioned, permanently fixed amount, then, and this permanently fixed amount was to be submitted year on year basis. What is the sharing mechanism? Sharing mechanism is 1/11 and 10/11. 10/11 for British. Now I'll tell you one thing. एक मिनट यहाँ पे एक question बता रहा हूँ, ठीक है? The question which was asked in the prelims paper. So you will have to tell me, ठीक है? That question was, मैं figures बस लिख रहा हूँ. Question was, what was the share of the British authority in the permanent settlement? ठीक है? And share of the collected revenue. So option 1, ठीक है? A, B, C. A was 89%. B was 91%. C was 90.9 something. ठीक है? 09? No, 90.89 or 09 something. It was there. And then D is 90%. So what will be the percentage of the British? ठीक है, ध्यान है ना? तो generally what people were doing 10/11 के हिसाब से most of the people were marking 89%. ठीक है? Do exact calculation in this type of the questions. सिर्फ दिमाग में वो बोलते हैं ना कि ऊपर ऊपर तौर पे करके कर दिया, that is not required over here. So you'll have to be very careful. Then, and same year there was one more question. ठीक है? I'm just giving you indication that what kind of, I think I have shared this question. नहीं? So उसी साल में one more question was asked not related to it. ध्यान से समझना. Geostationary satellite. What is the orbit of the geostationary satellite? Have you heard of geostationary satellite? So anyone who knows orbit? कितना किलोमीटर? 36,000 kilometer. ठीक है? So 36,000 kilometer is the orbit of the geostationary satellite. And now, so 36,000 kilometers which were given. अब options में क्या दिया था? 36,000, ठीक है, then 24,000, ठीक है, 30,000 and 20,000. So obviously the answer would be 36,000. But then you need to understand what was given. 36,000 miles. Miles, ठीक है. So what is the answer? 24. Be careful, ठीक है, in exam. Be careful in exam. और दूसरा, I have seen people doing over analysis in the paper. किसी ने दिया एग्जाम? नहीं दिया ना. So I'll tell you one tendency which happens, and then they start pestering us. So we'll tell you exactly what happens. Suppose कि आज एग्जाम हो गया, कल 2 दिन में everybody has given answers. Then suppose one of you, ठीक है, who was considering one of your question as correct, and then market में answer से correct नहीं हो रहा है, ठीक है, तो what you do, that you do hell lot of research, you do PhD on that question to give you a satisfaction that what I have done, that is right. And then you keep on pasting it to the everybody that कि ये ऐसे होना चाहिए, इस काम में मत फंसना. You are just wasting your time, and then you are wasting others' time also. So at the end of the day, endless research in this does not work. It's a very generic information, and the generic answers are given over here. तो इसको ध्यान में रखना. And human errors are one thing on the basis that human errors one thing which has to be avoided at any cost. So any cost. अब इस ईयर का जो क्वेश्चन था, ठीक है, I'll tell you exactly. So now I have already told you permanent settlement, and then after the next is the Rayatwadi settlement. So we are going to write in the Rayatwadi settlement that Rayatwadi settlement was initiated by Thomas Munro. ठीक है, this was initiated by Cornwallis in 1793, and Thomas Munro completely initiated it in 1820. So ऊपर क्वेश्चन में दिया था, what was given, that which of the revenue collection system initiated by Cornwallis, ठीक है, consider the following statement which is correct, ठीक है. So they have given at top by Cornwallis, and नीचे दो दोनों statement दिया है, that a right statement. रायतवाड़ी का भी right statement दिया है, and then permanent का भी right statement दिया है. Then, but then which one would be correct according to the question? Permanent or Rayatwadi? Permanent. People forgot, majority of people have done this mistake. किसी ने Cornwallis पढ़ा ही नहीं ऊपर question में, and they are going with the statement. Statements were easy, statements were correct, they marked both of them are correct. So this is the human error. Then you need to avoid at any cost. And remember, this exam you clear on the basis of the easy and moderate question. You never clear exam on the basis of the tough question. Tough questions are for everybody, and tough questions don't decide the merit of the, tough questions don't decide that you'll be clearing or not. It decides the what will be the cutoff marks. Okay, so if the questions are, many questions are tough, cutoff marks will go low, and if questions are easy, so cutoff will go high. So अगर जो easy moderate question में if you are not able to solve, then this is not easy. ठीक है, so remember कि बहुत difficult fact पढ़ने का कोई बहुत issue मतलब भी नहीं है इस एग्जाम में. तो वट एवर यू आर डूइंग इन द क्लासेस इन ऑल द सब्जेक्ट्स, प्रीलिम्स क्लियर करने के लिए मोर देन एनफ होगा. ठीक है, सो आई हैपन टू कम अक्रॉस वन ऑफ द वन मोर क्वेश्चन दिस ईयर, दैट रिवर क्वेश्चन. हैव यू सीन इट? दैट सीक्वेंस में आई थिंक आई टोल्ड यू लास्ट डे मैंने बात की थी क्लास में तुम्हारे. सी द रिवर्स विच वर गिवन, गोमती, घाघरा एंड गंडक. ठीक है, people create some mnemonics also. जैसे राजेश सर ने, ज्योग्राफी टीचर, he created a mnemonics that गोमती के घाघरे में गंदा कैसे आया. ठीक है, so it's अभी तो पॉपुलर हो रहा है, but it's a good mnemonics he created. So that is the sequence, that गोमती लखनऊ, then घाघरा, ठीक है, अयोध्या, basically सरयू is the घाघरा itself, then after गंडक is the यूपी बिहार border, and गंडक का एक दूसरा नाम भी है नारायणी. Those who are from Bihar, they know it. Then, so there are two Gandak, Choti Gandak, Badi Gandak. When they meet, so it becomes Narayani. And moreover, in your book of the fundamentals of physical geography, there is a meandering tendency which is mentioned about a river. जब देखना 11th class 11th की fundamentals of physical geography, so that is Gandak. So now understand. So if you are observant, जैसे travel करते हो train में, if you are observant, होता है ना, थोड़ी बहुत उत्सुकता तो होती है that you are sneaking out of the train window and then looking at that which river is this. So remember it. हर जगह किताब में पढ़ने की थोड़ी जरूरत है. That if you are remembering it when you're traveling, you're visiting places, so that itself is enough. Okay, many a times then. So these questions can be solved. And did I shared with you that one of the question related to that particular Bluetooth device? आई थिंक लास्ट क्लास. तो ऐसे ही ऑब्जर्वेंट होने की जरूरत है. लास्ट क्लास में आई थिंक शेयर किया था. तो ऑब्जर्वेंट रहो. तो डोंट डू मिस्टेक ऑन दीज टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. ठीक है, कि इसमें अगर जो दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन इज देयर, सो डू द कैलकुलेशन. भले 1 मिनट लगे, 2 मिनट लगे, बट डू द मैथमेटिकल कैलकुलेशन एंड देन अराइव एट द आंसर. ठीक है, अपने मन से मत करना. सो लेट्स गो बैक टू द नेक्स्ट सेटलमेंट, दैट इज द रायतवाड़ी सेटलमेंट. So mention Rayatwadi settlement. So Rayatwadi settlement. Now understand. 1792. There were two British officers, okay? Thomas Munro and Captain Reed. So what they did, that when the Mysore fight has happened, remember, Third Anglo-Mysore War, Tipu Sultan was defeated and the area of the Bara Mahal, Dindigal, Malabar was captured by the fighting partners. So British, that's Thomas Munro and Captain Reed, they initiated this particular settlement as an experimental project in the Bara Mahal. Then for some year, they have seen the result and then they want to apply it to all over Madras presidency. Okay? So then they are persuading the upper authorities of the Britain to implement it over there in the Madras and Bombay, and the final permission was given in the 1820s. So in 1820s, it is Thomas Munro who implemented it in the presidency of Madras, and Elphinstone implemented it in the presidency of Bombay. Now, one more thing you need to understand, that presidency of Madras included Tamil Nadu, it included Kerala, it included Karnataka, Andhra, Telangana. So these all are the part of it, and so as touching the parts of Odisha also. Then Bombay presidency. So Bombay presidency, half of the Maharashtra, in fact 30% of Maharashtra, जो भी coastal Maharashtra है, that was the part of the Bombay presidency. So as Bombay was also part of the Bombay presidency, then entire Gujarat is the part of Bombay presidency. South Rajasthan, that is Udaipur, Chittorgarh, that is the part of the, some of the areas are part of the Bombay presidency. And so as the entire Sindh in Pakistan was the part of the Bombay presidency. So now you can imagine that this is huge chunk of area and it was implemented. So in 51% area of the British India. Okay? So mention karo, you write. In 1792, two British officers, Thomas Munro and Captain Reed, implemented this settlement in the area of Bara Mahal in Karnataka, as an experimental project, Then mention experimental project. But it took time. For this settlement to be implemented on a broader level. Full stop. In 1820, Thomas Munro in 1820, Thomas Munro implemented it in Madras Presidency and Elphinstone implemented it in Bombay Presidency. Implemented it in Bombay Presidency. Then mention it covered approximately 51% area. It covered approximately 51% area of British India. 51% area of British India. Then, so अब total कितना हो गया? 51 and 19. 70% has gone in these two settlement. Remaining is the 30% which will go into the Mahalwari. So let's look into the some provisions. We'll give you a break, but then थोड़ा सा समझ लो. So provisions में very first thing that why it was called as Rayatwadi. So basically it is derived from the word Rayat. And the meaning of the Rayat word is peasant. So in South and the West India, the peasants were called as Rayat, and Rayat ka matlab peasant. So that's how they named it Rayatwadi. But the reason, one more reason, there is no zamindar in the settlement, but the settlement was between British and the Rayat. Okay? British and the peasant. So that's why it is named Rayatwadi. Now understand, at least on the paper, they have removed the intermediaries. So paper pe to nahi hai. When we use this word at least on the paper, there were no intermediaries, which means बाद में तो आएंगे. Paper पे तो नहीं है, but ground पे तो आएंगे. ठीक है? We'll see that how they will be coming. Then what is the change? So change is land ownership right. So land ownership right, earlier it was given to the zamindar, but since there is no zamindar over here, so land ownership right is given to the peasants. It is hereditary and it is transferable. But then similar to the permanent, the land ownership, ultimate ownership lay in the hands of the British authority. Next provision. If the peasant is not able to make the payment on time, so if he is not able to make the payment on time, it will lead to the snatching of his land ownership right. And then his land can be sold to somebody else also. That is one. Then apart from it, they have a learning from the permanent settlement. And what is the learning? Keep a provision of the revision of the revenue rates. So they kept a provision that after every 30 year, revenue rates would be revised. Har 30 saal ke baad, revenue rates would be revised. But then you can ask a question, who is going to collect the revenue in this settlement? Since zamindars are not there, intermediaries are not there, so who will be collecting? So for this purpose, they had to create a revenue department. What Cornwallis avoided in permanent, they will have to do in this settlement. So a big revenue department was created in which a large number of the officers were recruited and they were arranged in an official hierarchy. Okay? So they are the one who are going to collect. It means that it will increase their administrative cost. Okay? In permanent, there was no administrative cost, but here there would be an administrative cost. Then what about the relief to the peasants during the natural calamity? So relief was provided. It was mentioned in the law that in case of the natural calamity, relief will be given to the peasants. But then we haven't talked about the rates. So what rate they will be paying? Understand. They adopted a scientific approach for calculation and imposition of the taxes. So scientific approach for the calculation and imposition of the taxes. Understand with carefully that suppose if this is whatever be the acreage of land. In this land, someone is cultivating wheat. Right? So suppose you have cultivated wheat. The total worth when the wheat is cultivated, when you are selling it, so how much money you got? Suppose you got 2 lakh rupees. Then So this is the total worth of the crop, 2 lakh rupees. But this settlement says that the taxes would not be imposed on this amount, 2 lakh rupees. Settlement says that from the total worth of the crop, the total expense on growing a crop must be deducted. So suppose that you have spent 50,000 rupees, okay, in growing this wheat. So वो 50,000 would be minus, okay, from this 2 lakh rupees. So now when this 50,000 is minus, so what is the remaining amount? 1.5 lakh, and taxes will be implemented on this amount. Okay, so this is what they said. They adopted a scientific approach whereby they said that the taxes, for the calculation and imposition of the taxes, what they are saying, that from the total worth of the crop, total expense on growing a particular crop will be reduced, and then after on the remaining amount taxes will be implemented. That is first part. Second part, it says that in any case the highest amount of the tax must not be more than 50%. So tax rate must be lesser than 50% and highest could be 50%. So what could be the highest tax that British can take from this? 75,000 rupees, not more than that. So it seems to be a better provision as per the according in comparison with the permanent settlement. So अब थोड़ा सा लिखो या बाद में लिखोगे? ठीक है. So take break and then we'll write. Introduction you have written. So नहीं, not even. हाँ, written. So provisions से start करो. Write provisions. Write heading provisions. Mention करो. Number 1. The settlement was concluded between British authority and the peasants. Was concluded between British authority and peasants. That is Raiyat. That's why it was named Rayatwadi. That's why it was named Rayatwadi. Done. Number 2, you write. Land ownership right. Land ownership right was given to the peasants. Land ownership right was given to the peasants. It was hereditary. It was hereditary and transferable. It was hereditary and transferable. आगे लिखो. But the ultimate ownership of land. Lay in the hands of British authority. Lay in the hands of British authority. Then mention lay in the hands of British authority, full stop. Next point. If the peasants defaulted on the payment, defaulted का मतलब समझते हो? Meaning not paying on time or not paying at all. So if the peasants defaulted on payment, it led to confiscation of their land, and snatching of land ownership right. land ownership right. Then snatching of land ownership right. Then mention after it. हो गया, इतना हो गया. Then the settlement. The settlement. हाँ, next point. The settlement necessitated. You can see the spelling I'm writing on board. The settlement necessitated a big revenue establishment of a big revenue department. Establishment of a big revenue department for the collection of revenue. For the collection of revenue. Revenue. As such, large number of people were recruited. Large number of people were recruited for the purpose. For the purpose. Then mention. Next point. A number I don't know what is the number, but then you must be knowing. 6. तो लिखो. It provided relief. It provided relief to the peasants. It provided relief to the peasants in case of. It provided relief to the peasants in case of crop failure. In case of crop failure due to any natural calamity. Due to any natural calamity. Done? Then next point. उसके बाद देखो. They kept a provision of. They kept a provision of revision. They kept a provision of revision in land revenue rates. They kept a provision of revision in land revenue rates after an interval of 30 years. 30 years. 30 years. Then all of you हो गया. Then mention next point. For calculation for calculation and imposition of taxes. For calculation and imposition of taxes, a comparative scientific method. For calculation and imposition of taxes, a comparative scientific method was adopted. A comparative scientific method was adopted. Full stop. Whereby the total expense on growing a particular crop, total expense on growing a particular crop was to be deducted from the total worth of the crop. Was to be deducted from the total worth of the crop. And on the remaining amount. Taxes were to be imposed. And on the remaining amount, taxes were to be imposed. Then one more point you write. It was further said it was further said that that maximum maximum rate of taxes would be 50%, and it must not exceed more than 50%, must not exceed more than 50%. So that's it about this particular provision of the Rayatwadi. Let's look at the reasons for its implementation and then what was the impact of this settlement. So understand reasons for its implementation. First and the foremost is, let's talk about the land ownership right itself. ऐसा change क्यों? Why the land ownership right is given to the peasants but not to the intermediaries? British were very smart people, okay? And what they did, that this change was due to the utilitarian thought which was prevalent at that time. So what is utilitarian thought? Understand. British were smart people, intelligent people. They have a great understanding of the Indian society, and they knew land is an emotional subject in India. Then people, if they own the land, so they develop attachment with the land just like their children. Then so now they understood that if the land ownership right is given to the peasant, so he will be emotionally attached to the attached to the land. And then after, in the permanent, he was not working on the land for the fertility of it. Now he will be working on his own land because it is his own land to keep the fertility intact. Extra hours be work karenge. So that was the one thought. In fact, even till this date, don't you consider that land is an emotional subject? So particularly in village areas, you see if anybody is selling the parental land, and then after the entire village is talking about कि कैसा आदमी है बाप का जमीन बेच दिया. Then so this is what happens. Okay. So it is an emotional subject even till this point of time. So that is the time when the land ownership is given. So that becomes very important. So British knew this thing. And why? So if the fertility of the land will be intact, so the productivity will be good. And if the productivity would be good, so British would be supported. How they would be supported? Understand, this is the area of the area of the Madras and Bombay. And what is this area all about? This is the cotton belt of India. Cotton belt of India. If you look at that कि कहाँ पे cotton cultivation majorly India में होता है, तो that is Maharashtra, Andhra, Gujarat, ठीक है, Tamil Nadu. These are the belt. So now, why we are discussing cotton over here? Britain was at the apex of the industrial revolution, and the British industry, textile industry, because cotton cannot grow in the Britain. So this is a raw material and they needed this supply from India. Then, so if the fertility of the land would be there, if something would be left in the hands of the peasants, then only he will be cultivating the cash crops like the cotton, and that cotton will be taken by the British to feed their industries. So this is the purpose. Then moreover, they have learnings from the permanent that they are observing. So learning from the permanent, they kept a provision of the 30-year revision. Okay? After every 30 year, there will be revision in the revenue rates. कि अगर जो income बढ़ती है, तो rates भी बढ़ा देंगे. So that is one thing. And then moreover, why they have kept this particular employees, particularly in this, though the administrative cost will increase, but then there will be a direct control of British on the peasantry of India. It is not an indirect control कि पहले British, फिर then zamindar, from zamindar ke through peasantry. So they wanted to establish a direct control. So counting these all reasons, they have gone with the Rayatwadi settlement. And moreover, the tax rates which was fixed, it was also not very less. It was good enough for their income if there is no leakage. And what is leakage? Corruption. So if there is no corruption, so then it is good enough money for them. So एक बार लिखो, reasons for its implementation. Reasons for its implementation. Then number one likho. They wanted to promote, they wanted to promote cultivation of cash crops in India. They wanted to promote cultivation of cash crops in India. Then cash crops in India so that the raw material can be sent to so that the raw material can be sent to Britain. Raw material can be sent to Britain to feed their industries. Can be sent to Britain to feed their industries. Then next you write, as per the utilitarian thought, as per the utilitarian thought, it's written on board, you can see spelling. Utilitarian thought, land ownership was given to the peasants. Land ownership was given to the peasants so that he develops emotional attachment with the land, so that he will develop emotional attachment with land and he may work extra to keep the fertility of land. He may work extra to keep the fertility of land intact. To keep the fertility of land intact. Then अगला लिखो, next point. It was also thought that if something is left in the hands of peasant, then only he will be interested in cultivating cash crop. He will be interested in cultivating cash crop. Then next you write cultivating cash crop, full stop. Next point. It was also thought, नहीं लिखना, it was a learning from permanent settlement. It was a learning from permanent settlement that they must keep scope of revision in land revenue rates. Scope of revision in land revenue rates. Then after it mention लिखो. It was a good measure to keep direct control over the peasantry of India. To keep direct control over the peasantry of India. Then, so this is what is about this particular part. Then let's go into the next one. which is impact of this settlement. So mention karo a title, impact of settlement. So understand when it comes to the impact of settlement. So one by one, first of all, British. Okay. So it fulfilled all the targeted objectives of the British. What are the targeted objective? Continuous supply to the British industry. That is happening. Raw material is going to the British industry. A good income for them, it is happening. Okay. So a good income and in a better way, it is happening. Then the third is basically is administrative cost has increased for the collection of the revenue. Because they have already established a big revenue department, and in this revenue department, hierarchy, in a hierarchy, officers are there. So upper level hierarchy would be just like the that IRS आज के time पे, ठीक है. Then there would be a lower tax collector SSC के through, ठीक है. So this is how. So all the level, and the more lower would be. I hope you know these names if you must have seen in the villages. Patwari and Lekpal. Have you heard this name? So these all kind of positions were created and then employment is happening. So their expense has increased as far as the British is concerned. But then rest of the things getting fulfilled. When it comes to the peasants of India, okay, or peasants of these two area, so there are many issues in this particular settlement. Though first we talked about that it is better than the permanent settlement. At least on the paper, it is better than the permanent settlement. But anything to become better, it must be good on the ground. Then we can call it the better settlement. One of the thing which has happened with this settlement is commercialization of agriculture. It's a keyword you must remember, you must underline. अभी मत करना लिखने के वक्त. So commercialization of agriculture. Now, will you try? What is the meaning of this word? Commercialization of agriculture. Promoting cash crops. That's what is the meaning. So commercialization of agriculture, it's simple and straightforward. What it means that jahan pe, the place where growing the food grains, you must grow the cash crops. But then growing the cash crop has a problem. And what is the problem? That all of sudden, when they are promoting the cash crop, so all of sudden kya? With the promotion of cash crop, land area will not increase. Land to utna hi hai, jitna pehle tha. So the land which is under the cultivation, that is same. It means that they will have to avoid the food grains, and in that area, they will have to cultivate the cash crops. So now understand one hand that on one hand they are growing the cash crops and food grains are not grown. So कमी किस बात की होगी? Food grains की, ठीक है? There's scarcity of the food grains, which is most essential, and particularly the scarcity of the food grains, it included the scarcity of the cereals then, like rice, paddy, ठीक है? So rice, wheat, pulses. So their scarcity started to happen. So whenever there would be scarcity of the food grain, what will happen with the available food grain? Prices will go high. ठीक है? So एक तरफ समझना इस बात को. On one hand, with the cash crop, they might be getting more money, but on the other hand, in purchasing the food grain, ये पूरा पैसा चला गया. So it is a zero sum game. Then कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ. No benefit is happening. So this is what was the problem with this particular settlement, that there was a scarcity of the food grains in India, particularly in the Bombay and the Madras presidency. Then so इतना लिखो, mention करो. Very first one, you write. It fulfilled all the targeted objectives. It fulfilled all the targeted objectives of British authority. All the targeted objectives of British authority, like supply of raw material, to British industries, comma, a good sustainable income, and direct control on Indian peasantry. Good sustainable income and direct control on Indian peasantry. full stop. But it also increased, but it also increased the administrative cost of revenue collection. But it also increased the administrative cost of revenue collection. Done? Then mention. Second point, it led to commercialization of agriculture. It led to commercialization of agriculture, which means cash crops were promoted, instead of food grains, full stop, which later led to scarcity in the food grains, which later led to scarcity of the food grains, and further inflation in food grain prices, Done? Now understand about the peasantry of that time. So what was the impact on them? So on paper it seems to be good, but on ground it was no different from the permanent settlement. Then first of all, that the thing which was mentioned, that if there is a natural calamity or crop failure is happening due to the natural calamity, so peasants would be given relief. It was written on the paper, it was not written in the permanent, but written in the Rayatwadi. But on ground, this relief was not provided. Then I'll tell you one example. It is written in the big book of the Vipin Chandra, that struggle for independence. So where he has mentioned one case from the Bombay presidency. And one of the area in the Bombay presidency, particularly in the Gujarat, is Kheda. Kheda is a very popular place in Gujarat. And in fact, if we see Kheda from the today's perspective, it is the place from where milk revolution of India happened. What we called it Anand milk revolution. That is a part of the Kheda area only. And Amul is happening from, it happened from there only. So Kheda, there was a drought, severe drought in one particular, in 3-4 years, Lagatar, it was a severe drought. People were not able to pay the taxes. When the British officers have gone to collect the taxes, so people said that in the name of the greenery, there is only grass in this land. Okay? There is no other crop which is growing from last 3-4 years. So they were very insensitive. They forced the community over there that they must sell the grass and pay the revenue. Okay? They went on to say that grass is a very good produce and you sell it and anyhow you pay the revenue. Then, so no relief was given. They might have retrospective or prospective inspiration from the लालू जी. ठीक है, तो सोचा होगा कि चारा खा गए तो इधर भी चारा खिला के कुछ टैक्स दे देते हैं. So then anyways, so insensitivity was there. जो भी law में है but law execute तो नहीं हो रहा है. Then that is one part. Then moreover, peasantry was oppressed many a times because of these corrupt officials and the corrupt money that they are taking. But then what about these intermediaries? It's an interesting discussion over here. So we wrote that at least on paper, or we were mentioning at least on paper, there were no intermediaries. But can you avoid an intermediary? You can't avoid. Just like the first copy of any such thing, which is manufactured, it can't be avoided. Until and unless there is a China, there would be a first copy. So it's only one thing, that the citizens of the China, they don't have the first copy. They are the original. Then you didn't got it. थोड़े लोग ट्यूबलाइट हो तुम लोग, ठीक है. So anyways, so now understand that what is there. So it cannot be avoided. Intermediaries cannot be avoided. What happened? The revenue department, when it was created, So in this revenue department, then there was a need of the local people. British cannot go with themselves, okay? That they are appointing their officers and they will be very effective. And so anyway, because language barrier is there, and then in the language barrier, we Indians, we can hide anything, okay? Then or we can make them fool. So they needed the help of the powerful people from the villages and the rural areas. So they started to recruit some of the powerful rich people from the village areas in the revenue department. Okay? So now they are not intermediary, but they are British officials. Okay? So these people were polygars and mirasidars. Polygars and mirasidars. They have become the agents of British authority and employees of the British authority in the revenue establishment. Now, once they got their official position, so just like zamindars were extracting hell lot of taxes from their area, here they are extracting more corrupt money from this area. And in fact, what else they are doing? So I'll just talk about Delhi NCR development. अभी इस बात को यहीं पे छोड़ दो, ठीक है? Let's understand something related to so that we can correlate. So in if I'm right, so it is 1993 when Delhi NCT bill was passed, and that's how this entire area, Noida, Gurgaon, Faridabad, this all comes under the Delhi NCR area. Okay? So near capital region. Now the development of the near capital region started, and area of the Noida and Gurgaon developed in a very faster way. So is the Faridabad. Only thing that Ghaziabad existed from the time immemorial as polluted as it was. Okay? Right from the beginning till this point of time. So no change in Ghaziabad, but the new areas which were created, Noida. Noida is new Okhla Industrial Authority, Development Authority. Then Faridabad and Gurgaon. So hell lot of agricultural land was there. Then now understand, when this agricultural area or the land which is there, where colonies to be created, different areas of that city development is to be created. So for example, Noida ka example lete hain. In Noida itself, that there are the sectors in the Noida which are known as electronic area, okay, where there are the areas which are known for the IT industries. Then the sports city would be there, a particular sector, Noida 42, 52, whatever be the sectors. Then so cutting out of the sectors is happening, and when the cutting out of the sector is happening, so road will be planned, then drain will be planned, then lighting would be planned, everything is to be planned. So have you given a thought who does this planning? Who do this survey in the beginning? Who are the initial workers or initial people who go on the ground? They decide कि इस area में ऐसा sector बन सकता है, this type of the road can be created, this is the scope, this much acreage would be there. Any idea? Clerical department of any department. Okay? So the basic people who do the groundwork is the clerks. Okay? And these clerks, what we call in the normal Hindi or Indian language, we call them babus. Okay? So we call them babus. So babus are the one who are doing the research. Okay? Then after, when they have done the groundwork, they will be reporting it to the developmental officers. Okay? And majority of the development officers are from the civil services. Okay? Then the plan is created, further plan is created, and then it goes to the political party. Okay? The power in the regime, and it passes the plan. So this is what is the layer. But understand, the babus are the one who have the first-hand information. When they have the first-hand information, so means that they can take the benefit of it. And what is the benefit? I'll tell you exactly. So when the Delhi NCR was developing both the areas, Gurgaon ke side pe bhi or Noida side pe bhi, a large number of the bade babu log, theek hai? So they were knowing the information. They started buying the agricultural land on a very cheaper rate. Then, so 5 lakh rupees mein koi land kharidi. Then after 7-8 years, they knew the information that there this particular sector is coming. And after that, when the sector project was passed, so what land they have purchased in 5 lakh rupees was sold in 2 crore rupees. Windfall gains happened to the people, and that's how overnight people became ultra rich in the Delhi NCR area. Then this is what we are calling as an insider information. I hope you must have heard about it. Then moreover, usse ek aur cheez hui, that some people who were not selling that land at that time, they were not selling. That suppose karo ki mujhe nahi sell karna tha, I did not sold my land, agricultural land. Then what is happening? it is leading to the torture, and it is leading to the instances of the corruption, not just corruption, instances of the killing, torture and kidnapping. So जैसे मान लो ये बीच में एक जगह है, ठीक है, एंड देन रेस्ट ऑफ द साइड एरियाज हैव बीन परचेज्ड, बट आई एम नॉट सेलिंग दिस लैंड. सो व्हाट दे विल डू, they will kidnap somebody from family, and then after even the death threat would be there, somebody will be killed also, and then at the end of the day you will have to sell the land. Okay, so these instances started to increase, criminal activity started to increase because there is a hell lot of profit. So this is easy to understand कि ये यहाँ पे कैसे हुआ. Same thing is over here in this also. The polygars and mirasidars, they had all the initial information of all the projects of that time, the road project, canal project, and one of the fight was particularly in the Bombay and the Madras presidency is irrigated land. Irrigated land. Then irrigated land is the most prized possession in that area. Why so? Monsoon rains are good in the north, then plain areas, rivers are bringing, rivers are perennial, but in the south, particularly in the middle part, okay, the rain is not sufficient, and moreover, the rivers are ephemeral. So जहां पे भी irrigation के sources ज़्यादा होंगे, that land would be costlier. So these polygars and mirasidars, they started to force people to sell their irrigated land to them on a very cheaper rate. ठीक है, on a very cheaper rate. And suppose कहीं पे भी canal बनने वाली है, it is about to be created, a canal is about to be created, so they have information, they have already purchased that land. ठीक है, so that they have got the irrigated land. So suppose they have purchased that land in 1 lakh rupees, and after the canal project has passed, so that land they will be selling in 9 lakh, 10 lakh. Okay, so this is how the profits they were making, and they also resorted to torture and extortion. So such was the situation that in 1855 Madras Torture Commission was created, and Torture Commission, reading the all the ongoings in that area, it gave a warning to the British authority at that time. It said that if you do not look at the problems of the peasants and the way the torture is happening to them, so if you're not look at them, so then it may lead to a very bigger revolt. Then, so very bigger outburst from the side of the people, and that proved to be true. It happened in the 1857. Okay? So this is what was the scenario, that though they were kept apart, but then they became the part of the settlement. So mention karo, what is the last line that you have written? I hope you understood with this. ठीक है, दिखाओ. So last you impact on peasants. Then so mention karo. The impact of the settlement on peasant, the impact of the settlement of peasant on peasant was no different than the other settlements. No different than the other settlements. Then mention the tax burden on peasants was high. The tax burden on peasants was high. Tax burden on peasant was high. And in case of crop failure, they were not given, in case of crop failure, they were not given any relief. In case of crop failure, they were not given any relief. Full stop. Any relief. Change paragraph and then you mention. Though this settlement did not included intermediaries on paper, but in the process, intermediaries got their positions. Intermediary got their positions. Full stop. Then mention. When the big revenue department was established, when the big revenue department was established, comma, village elites like polygars and mirasidars. It's written on board. Polygars and mirasidars comfortably placed themselves. Polygars and mirasidars comfortably placed themselves in the revenue ranks. Comfortably placed themselves in the revenue ranks. They became agents of British authority. They became agents of British authority. They became agents of British authority. Full stop. Then mention in the same line you're writing. Okay. Full stop के बाद. After getting their appointments, they started to use insider information. They started to use insider information for their own good. Insider information for their own good. Full stop. They started to purchase irrigated lands. They started to purchase irrigated lands on cheaper rates. Irrigated lands on cheaper rates. And they also resorted to torture and extortion. They also resorted to torture and extortion. Then mention in 1855 Madras Torture Commission. In 1855 Madras Torture Commission was created. Torture Commission was created. It warned British authority that if the grievances of peasants is not addressed, then it will implode into implode into a bigger revolt. Then so this is what is about this particular settlement, Rayatwadi settlement. Now one more is remaining, I can't do today. ठीक है. So महलवारी कल है ना क्लास हमारी, मॉर्निंग या आफ्टरनून? मॉर्निंग. ठीक है. तो we'll be starting with the महलवारी. After completion of the topic, wait करो एक मिनट. So then we'll go into the civil and tribal uprising. ठीक है. सो सिविल एंड ट्राइबल अपराइजिंग है, और उसके बाद देन नेक्स्ट वीक में जब भी क्लास होगी तो देन विल स्टार्ट विद द 1857 रिवोल्ट. चलो, थैंक यू.